Well, hey everybody, welcome back. It's exciting to see you to come on another episode. I want to say this is maybe episode 57 or even 59 or something like that, but I know it's been amazing to hear so many different stories about how God has truly changed the lives of people when they've come to know Him. And today is going to be no exception. It's going to be an amazing story we're about to hear. And I'm going to introduce to you a new friend of mine that I recently met in the last few months. This is Dale Lackey. How are you doing, Dale?
Pretty good.
God bless you, man. Thank you for sitting down and being willing to share your story.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure. I mean, it's so profound that I'd have never believed it myself if I hadn't lived it.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah,
that's who God is, though. He does the impossible. So Dale, I know, well, I'm sure at some point we're going to talk a little bit about our setting here and what you guys do, but before any of that stuff came, and before you really giving your life to Jesus, tell us a little bit about what Dale was like and where that what's that look like.
Well, I've been a Christian all my life, but like a lot of people do, they just stray away a little bit, and I did that throughout my life, but. Right out of high school, I went into the military, spent 10 years in the military. Had some things happen in there that sort of played a role in where I'm at today. And then after that, I went out and did just about every kind of job you could imagine. Carpenter, mechanic, firefighter, paramedic, coroner's investigator. And throughout all of the different things that I was experiencing, it all took a toll on my mental stability, and not that I was losing my mind or anything. It just I was developing issues where I would have anger management issues. Patience was just not there, and the jobs that I had all played a part in that. Military most of all, because when you go in the military, they break you down mentally and rebuild you into what they want. They teach you to where if you're told, okay, shoot that person, you don't question it, you just pull the trigger. Well, when they release you from all that and send you back into society, they don't change that. That's all still inside of you, and they just turn you loose on the world. Well, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and then my wife and I, Renee, actually met and got married at Faith Ranch in Jewett, Ohio. We're not a part of their organization now, but it's where we came together. I was noticing that I was having more trouble controlling my anger and stuff. I'd get mad quicker. I never got violent. Never been per se a violent person. I won't go out and look for trouble, but I won't back away from it either. But I was starting to get short-tempered on ambulance calls and around the ranch and with my family and everything, and it just was making life difficult, you know. It affected the other people more so than it did myself.
Yeah.
I was at a point where I wasn't really worried about how it made me feel, as long as I was able to wake up every day and go about my life. So I started researching different things, and with the ranch that we worked at, the herd was getting older and we were needing to replace horses. So I found out that the federal government would sell you a wild Mustang for $25. Well, okay, we'll get the Mustangs and we'll train them and use them for replace the ranch horses. And along with that, we set up a program. Was designing a program where the horses would be trained. They'd get all their equipment. They'd move across the road from the training area to the ranch area, the main ranch, and we'd introduce them to the kids and let the kids ride them. For one reason or another, the ranch decided they didn't want to do it. Right at the beginning, they were still questing it. So I found a program Well, actually, a friend of ours introduced me to this program online in Colorado where they take veterans and they put you with Mustangs and teach you how to train them and certify you as a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
So I contacted the people to try and get into it, and they said I was 1 day late.
No.
They had quit taking applications the day before. So she gave me the idea with that one to, well, okay, there's got to be more out there. So I found one down in Austin, Texas, a place called Mustang Heritage Foundation. And I called and talked to a woman named Gail, and she told me that I had 1 week before the applications were cut off. And they had a stack of applicants already, like 500 applicants for this thing. And if I wanted to get into it, I needed to hurry up and get all the information and everything together, send in a headshot of me. Well, I wasn't thinking about it. We didn't plan it a certain way or anything. I filled out all my information, got a couple of letters and emailed them to her really quick. And they took a picture of me in the office. Well, just so happened when they took the picture, there's a photograph of Jesus right behind me. And it wasn't planned that way. It just happened that way.
Uh-huh.
And then a couple of weeks went by and I didn't hear anything. And well, I guess I didn't make it. You know, didn't meet the standards of what they wanted. And I was out in the field and they yelled at me from the main ranch house to come in that there was somebody on the phone wanting to talk to me. So I come into the house and I picked up the phone and she said, yeah, this is Gail from Mustang Heritage. And she said, we haven't made all our final picks yet. We had originally picked 6 people, but we got your application and so we're thinking about it. We wanted to pull one of them back a little bit. So she was on the phone. She said, there's another gentleman on the phone here with me, and he's going to listen to our conversation. He might interject a couple questions. Just answer them to the best of your ability, and then we'll see what we're going to do. So I started talking to both of them, and she said, well, yeah, you know what? We think you're the one.
Wow.
So I got accepted in the program. It was 6 weeks long.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the time, I had 5 jobs. I was a full-time paramedic.
Mm-hmm.
I was a coroner's investigator. I had a custom knife-making business. I worked full-time hours at the ranch, at Faith Ranch, and then I had a business where I'd go around and inspect the AEDs, automatic external defibrillators, in grocery stores and airports and stuff like that to make sure they were functional. So I had to tell all my other bosses besides myself that, hey, I'm taking 6 weeks off. Mm-hmm. And I've got to do this. Well, at the time, I understood the program as being, I'm going to go to Texas for 6 weeks. I'm going to get certified as a wild horse trainer, and I get a free horse out of the deal.
Yeah.
Well, then the free horse alone was enough to convince me I wanted to do it. But in return, when I got back, I would be the only certified trainer at the ranch, and I'd take over all the training. So I went to Texas and got into the program, and within the first couple of days, I realized that it wasn't just a training horse certification program. It was a training program to train myself.
Wow.
That's when I found out that it was for veterans with PTSD and other stress and military-related issues that they needed to get a handle on. Mm-hmm. So we went through the program, and as we were going through it, I'm noticing changes in the other people in the group with me and in myself especially. The horse I had, Sadie, which you'll see her, she's out here in the field still. I still have her. I had to learn that when I would get frustrated at her because she was frustrated and angry with me, that I had to approach it in a whole different light, you know. It wasn't discipline, it was communication and trust. And I had to soften my appearance, my voice, and control my anger, because if I got madder, she got madder, and she was a lot bigger than me. Uh-huh. And in the beginning of it, the first time I walked in with her, she stood up on her hind legs, was striking out at me, trying to bite me. She just wanted to destroy me, just to get away. And within a couple of weeks, I'd sat there every day about 6 hours a day, hold hay out for her to try and eat it out of my hand. And she'd come in and she'd eat the hay in front of me, but she wouldn't take it out of my hand at first. It took about 4 days for that. But I got to where I could pet her and just take her halter off and on and pet her pretty much all over. I could put my jacket and take my jacket off and lay it on her. So I told the instructor or coach, Katie Ketterhagen, Katie Moore now, how about if I take her out on walkabout a little bit and we'll see how things go out in the grass. She said, yeah, sure, if you're confident that you can handle her. I said, okay. So I turned around and turned my back to the horse, and I leaned down to pick up a lead rope, and when I did, she attacked me. She lunged and she grabbed me by my arm right here from this side, but her teeth were together on this side. And she started dragging me across the pen, and I smacked her on the nose, and she took off running into the corner. And my first instinct was, when I was raised, when the horse bites you, you either bite it back or you smack it. So I went running into the corner after her. And just before I got to her, something in my head clicked and said, be nice. I said, don't do anything, just be nice. So I got up to her, and I just reached out and I started petting her, rubbing her cheeks and her forehead. Because when we started training, they taught us, show them that rubbing their forehead is payment.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good thing. So I started rubbing her face, rubbing her neck, and scratching her sides. And she went from having eyeballs and huge, fierce-looking eyes to the softest size of a puppy. And when I turned around and walked away from her, she was right at my side and has been there ever since.
Wow.
And it taught me how to control anger and aggression are not always the answer. I'm not saying they're never the answer, but they're not always the answer. Sometimes there's a place for it, and sometimes there's not. You just got to let God tell you when to control it and when to let it loose. So I left all my other jobs, left the ranch. I got a job up here in Glenmore, Ohio, working for North Star Ambulance as a paramedic. And we just started building off of that. But anytime you're doing what God wants you to do, the devil doesn't want you to do it. And he's going to wiggle his little nose right in there to try and make things more difficult. So my first day at work on my new job, I got sick. Well, I was already sick before I even got to work. But my first day, I can't miss work, you know. So we got to work, and I'm there half the day, and the boss comes in, and she says, are you sick? I said, yeah. She says, why are you here? I said, it was my first day. I can't not show up.
Yeah.
And because we always joke about the millennials. And, yeah, I'm not one of these millennials. I'm going to stay and work. So she said, no, you need to go home. Well, it actually took me 2.5 months to get back to work because that was the onset of COVID, and nobody would give me a COVID test because I didn't have a fever. Well, the federal government says you can't work without a COVID test.
Yeah.
I said, well, they said I don't have it. I'm not contagious. But nobody would give me a letter saying you're not contagious. So I had to stay off for almost 2.5 months.
Oh my gosh.
So financially, that was already hitting us hard. So we just kept struggling and pushing forward, and then we got several large donations, and we made enough money to put up all the fencing around here and build our first barn. At that time, we had a little barn out here in the pasture field, was where we were training for our first Extreme Mustang Makeover.
Okay.
That one was in Kentucky. I was the first veteran to go through the Mustang Heritage Foundation's Veterans and Mustangs program and continue on with the training I got from them to compete in the International Extreme Mustang Makeover. That's where you take a wild horse straight out of the wild. You have 100 days to train it, and then you compete against 99 other trainers in an international competition. It's a challenge.
Yeah, sounds like it.
I got lucky. My very first horse was very easy. She was a sweetheart to train until my wife stole her. And then after that, 21, I developed COVID, severe case of COVID. We just completed a poker run with Youngstown Harley Davidson and Wheeling Valley Harley Davidson. And they all came here. We did a poker run, went back up to Youngstown for the party afterwards. And then 4 days later, I was hospitalized with COVID-19. It had nothing to do with the event itself. I'd been on high-dose steroids. My VA doctor had me taking 15 steroid pills a day, and it annihilated my immune system.
Okay.
So somebody came here that had been vaccinated and had the Delta variant from it mutating when they got COVID. It mutated because of the vaccine, and I caught the Delta variant. And that's the way the doctor explained it to me. So I got so sick that I was crawling across the floor in our basement because I couldn't get up, and I couldn't go upstairs. The coolest place in the house was the basement, so I was literally laying on the floor for a couple of days.
Wow.
My wife was doing her best to keep me going, taking care of me, and finally we decided, it's time to go. I'm a paramedic, and like most people in the medical field, we try and doctor ourselves,
Sure.
and it don't always work.
Yeah.
This is one of those times it didn't. Well, they got me in the car, and we went to Med Express in Wintersville, and they told her to immediately take me to the hospital.
Wow.
I got into the hospital, and they did a bunch of tests and said, okay, we're going to send you home. You can deal with this at home. And my nurse, who actually knew me from outside of work and outside of her job, we worked together at a different hospital, and she knew me from the ranch as well. And she told the doctor, she says, I know Dale, and if you send him home, he's going to die. She says, that is not the man that it's supposed to be.
Wow.
So the doctor come in, and we discussed it, and said, okay, we're going to keep you overnight for observation. And I remember him wheeling me out of the ER to go upstairs, and that's the last thing I remember that I can do a timeline on for 45 days.
45 days.
Once they got me upstairs, apparently I had been texting my wife and my boss, and we were trying to devise a plan to where they could kidnap me out of this hospital and take me to a better hospital. So it kept getting worse. They put me on BiPAP and CPAP and everything else, and it wasn't working. So they moved me into the ICU. And then the doctor told me that at one point they snuck my wife into the ICU basically to say goodbye because they expected me to die that night. While I was in the coma, I was living several different life strands. And at one point in one of the lifelines, I was in a fist fight with death on a street in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania that I had never been to. And when I described it to friends afterwards, what the place looked like, they told me exactly where it was, and they just said, you described it to a T. And I've never been there.
Wow.
And but I was in a fight with death, and at one point my youngest granddaughter stepped in between us and pushed us apart. He said, that's my pappy, you're not taking him. And we went back to fighting again, and she pushed us apart, and she said, I said no. And everything got really bright. And the doctor said that at one point, everything just flip-flopped. And the oxygen levels went back up to normal, and the CO2 went down to normal, and I started recovering. And I know in my heart that that's when it happened. That is also when, judging by the chart, when I started researching it more after I was told I'd had a cardiac arrest, that's also when I went into cardiac arrest.
Okay.
They didn't tell anybody, and we wouldn't have actually known that I had gone into cardiac arrest until about 3 months ago. I had to see a surgeon because they thought I had appendicitis. And he went through my whole chart because I don't have an appendix.
Yeah.
So it's hard to have appendicitis.
Yeah.
So he went back and he reviewed all the the charts from when I was in the hospital for COVID, because I had 28 different doctors. And he said he found in the chart that I had been in the cardiac arrest. And he said, did you have any residual effects from the cardiac arrest? I said, I didn't know I had one. And nobody told me that. So we progressed through that. And like I said, the bright light, I just changed everything. While I was in the coma, I had an experience where I was walking down this road, and there was crossroads. When I got to the crossroads, there was an opening in the field to the left. So I walked through that opening, and as soon as I did, everything went bright. I mean, just crystal bright. And there was a minister and his wife standing there, and the rubbles of a church behind them. And he's apologizing to his congregation for forgetting to put out one of the candles, and the building burned to the ground. And laying in front of the building were 6 bodies of the firemen who had gone in to try and save everything out of the church. And it was old time days. The fire department was at the other end of town, and it was a horse-drawn buggy, or a horse-drawn fire truck. Well, the guys that were at that end of town at the church decided to go in and try and save as much as they could before the fire truck got there. Well, one of the firemen laying there on the ground was me. And at that point, somebody kept coming up, and I was in a crystal casket. I'm sorry about that. I've got nose running. But they kept tapping on it and saying, Dale, can you hear me? Dale, can you respond? Mr. Lackey, are you here? Well, through everything that was going on, I come to realize that now that was the mask that they had on me, and they were reducing the sedation to make sure I was still alive, that I wasn't brain dead. But the church being burned to the ground with me in it, my sister's an ordained minister, and she came up when I was in the hospital, and then she'd gone back home. We didn't get to talk about the dreams and stuff that I had. And she said that, she called me one day and she says, I got to apologize to you. She said, back in June I had a dream that you died, but I didn't tell nobody, didn't tell you, because I didn't want it to be true. And I went, well, okay, that's scary. And she said, but God told me that you were going to receive a spiritual cleansing by fire. And that he had plans for you. There would be an evangelist would come to your farm to teach you how to share the word more successfully through your horse program. She said, I don't know who it is or when it's going to happen. She said, but it's going to happen. And that's when I told her about me dying in the fire in the church. And she said that could very well be what it was. So that made it even more interesting to me, and more of a, how do I don't even know what word I'm looking for. How do I know I have what it takes to do what he wants?
Yeah.
So I just pray about it. And he just keeps doing it. 3 times in my life, he saved my life. When I was 23 years old, I had my 4th heart attack.
Yeah.
And he kept me going. I'm still in the military, finished out the military career. Then I had COVID-19, and apparently did die from that, but got the second chance at life. Actually, a year and 7 days later, no, a year and 12 days later, something like that, December 3rd of 2021, I was discharged from the hospital from COVID. December 20th, 2022, 5 days before Christmas, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And it just, I don't remember a whole lot of it. When they told me, it was one of those things when the doctor didn't even tell me. His PA come in, and she's not real good at giving bad news. As soon as I walked into the room, I could tell that, this is not going to be good. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, yeah, you've got cancer. And told me it was colon cancer, so there's a possibility they could get it all out. They weren't sure yet, but they thought they could. So so first week of January of 2023, I had cancer surgery. Then August of 2022, I had cancer surgery. 23, I had arm surgery. I had 8 fractures in my arm. Yeah. From before I had COVID, that's why they had me on the high-dose steroids. So they ended up working on that. So it's just been a challenge, one after another. And we were to the point, we were literally hours away from sheriff's sale on our ranch. And God come through again, and we received a check for $59,000 for our mineral rights that had been almost a year late even getting here. Yeah. And it came in hours before foreclosure, it already went through foreclosure, and it was up for sheriff's sale. There's a big frog. I know, focus. But every time there's a need, he provides. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just... And I'm no spectacular Christian. I do what I can to live the way I'm supposed to. I'm not always the best at it. But I talk to God every day. Mm-hmm. Every day. I never miss a day.
Amen. Well, it definitely sounds like, your life is one where it seems like so many times you've been taken right to that edge, and then God comes through. And as we kind of wrap up this story, I got to believe there's probably some people out there that maybe you're watching, maybe they're at that point where They're like, man, I don't know how I can keep going. I'm about ready to give up, or maybe they've gone through it and they know what you're talking about. What would you say to that person that's kind of at that position? If you could sum it all up in a minute or two, what would your advice be? To
give it to God. Lay it at His feet. Get down on your knee and talk to Him. Tell Him what you're going through. He already knows, but He needs you to let Him know that He's there to help. And He'll help you. I mean, He's the way to success, the way to life. No matter what I've been through, I've always relied on Him to get me to the other side of that hardship. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't believe in Him. A lot of people I know that don't believe in Him. I, for a fact, know that He exists. I have been into situations to where there's no other explanation. When a medical doctor tells you, you're supposed to be dead. You're not supposed to be here. It was a miracle that you're alive. That's pretty strong effort right there,
That's definitely God.
Yeah, He's there no matter what the situation is. I'm not going to say it's just going to get better overnight. Not going to get better that instant. But give it time. It will get better.
Amen. Well, brother, thank you. I think that's awesome. Thanks for sharing all of this wonderful story. And we just pray a blessing on you, dude. God bless you. And thank you guys for watching and tuning in. We'll see you on another episode. All right?